All right, Mr. Ahmed here. I am just going to remake this front page of the ratio and proportion video since I left it sitting on the top and you couldn't quite see how we finished it. So if you were struggling to see that, this is an amendment to the 8.1 ratio and proportion video that's going to be a little bit shorter and just go over the first two examples. So as we stated, we're going to change this to an 8.1 because it correlates with our textbook instead of the note packet. And we are going to address the question of how do we solve a proportion and set up a ratio. A ratio is a comparison of two or more quantities using division. So essentially we have two numbers that are being divided, and it can be represented a couple different ways. The first one is a colon in between the two, a 2b, or we could just write it as a fraction, a over b, or we could just state it as a 2b. In a number type sense, a ratio could be 6 to 7, or we could write it as 6 over 7, or we could also state that as 6 to 7. So that is a ratio. So our first couple examples, we're just going to set up a few ratios. And the first one says the length of a rectangle is 8 inches and its width is 5 inches. What is the ratio of the length to the width? So it wants length first, width second. In this case, the length is 8, so 8 would come first to 5. And that would be the way we'd write it with a colon, or we could represent it as a fraction as 8 over 5, or we could also state it as 8 to 5. And for the second part, it just wants us to switch it around and say the ratio of the width to the length, because we could set it up both ways. So if we go width to length, the width would have to come first, which is 5 to 8, or you could state it as 5 over 8, or we could also say as 5 to 8. And example 2, that's the one that we couldn't see at all, goes over a baseball example. And it says in 2015, the Minnesota Twins baseball team won 83 games out of 162 games. Write a ratio for the number of games won to the number of games lost. So the first thing we have to do is figure out how many games that they lost. They played a total of 162, and they won 83 of them. So 162 minus 83 would give us the amount that is lost. So 162 minus 83 is 79. So they lost 79 games. So going back to the original question, what is the ratio of the games won to lost? So 1 would come first. They won 83. 2, the games lost 79. And that would be our ratio. And like we said, we skipped number 3 because we couldn't do the survey. So I will cut it off there. This was just an add-on for the part that you were not able to see in the first video.